So good evening and welcome to Osgoode. This is the Dean's Summer Webcast, and I'm the Dean, Lorne Sossin, who has the good fortune to be sitting with some amazing representatives of our faculty, staff, and students. And the goal tonight is both to get you thinking about law school, to get you ready for what's in store in the fall, respond to some of the questions you might be having, and share information that we hope will start making the first year experience a really successful one. And also for us, having just enjoyed convocation here last Friday, where we sent the great class of 2014 off into the world, it's a chance to focus on the amazing class of 2017 and 18 to come. And we really want you to already feel a part of the Osgoode community, and we certainly can't wait to see you in person in September or August, and want to make sure again that you have a chance to prepare for that, and that when you arrive you know exactly what to expect. So that's the goal tonight. I'm going to walk you through some of the topics we're going to cover in a moment, but before doing that I want to allow all of the panelists to introduce themselves to you, and I'm going to begin to my right with Clinton Green, one of the students joining us tonight, and we'll ask each of you to introduce yourself, say a little word about the role you're playing tonight, and then we'll move on to the discussion straight away.
Hi everyone, my name is Clinton Green. I'm entering my third year at Osgoode, and I will be, I am the student recruitment coordinator this summer in the admissions office, and I am the executive director of the International Legal Partnership at Osgoode. I will today be discussing the first year program rather, and I guess giving some tips to get through it.
No, and I have a hard time keeping track of all your roles as well, so this is to be expected. And Jennifer, over to you.
So my name's Jennifer McKee, and I started off in my first year, I'm going into third year now. Started off in my first year as an associate editor for the Osgoode Hall Law Journal. Continued on second year as a senior editor, going into third year as a senior editor. Currently the chair of the Recruitment Selection and Orientation Committee. And I am also working as the executive assistant for the Innocence Project, which is a clinical program at Osgoode. I was a student member of the Innocence Project last year. So I'll be talking about those two things primarily.
Excellent. And Shanaz.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shanaz Khan. I'm going into second year here at Osgoode Law School. In my first year, I was the first year representative for CARL, which is the Canadian Association for Refugee Lawyers, and I was on the executive committee for International Legal Partnership. This summer, I'm working for LAWS, which stands for Law in Action Within School, and it's one of our great organizations that we have here at Osgoode. This evening, I'll be speaking about Orientation Week and what to expect, and student life in regards to living at the Osgoode Chambers.
Thank you very much. And now moving to my left, and our fearless Associate Dean of First Year, Kate Sutherland.
Thank you. Associate Dean of First Year. In that role, my job basically is to make sure that you have the best first year that you can possibly have, and to offer whatever academic support that you need. And I also serve as a torts professor.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Trevor Farrow. I'm a faculty member here at Osgoode. I'm also the Director of Clinical Education, and as of the beginning of next month, I'll be the incoming Associate Dean. So I'm really looking forward to meeting all of you and welcoming you to Osgoode.
Hi everyone, I'm Alyssa Cooper. I'm the manager of admissions and student financial services. I also am a graduate of Osgoode. I graduated in 2006 when law school was expensive, but not as expensive as it is today. So I'm going to talk to you today a bit about paying for law school and some of the services that we have available for you in the financial services office.
Excellent. Thank you, Alyssa. Thanks to all of you for joining us, and of course thanks to you for tuning in. And I should add, listening to Alyssa reminds me to mention that in addition to being dean, I'm also a graduate and had a wonderful experience at Osgoode more years ago than 2006 when law school was cheap, just to date me. But it was an incredibly intense, overwhelming, amazing experience, but it was really not something that I knew much about in the summer before I started. And I remembered there was a kind of introduction to law school book you could find at the time, very useful but generic information, and it really was a kind of learn as you go experience when I started at Osgoode, and there's a certain adrenaline and intensity to that. But there are also some great opportunities to be more prepared, more organized, and also a chance to direct and channel some of the enthusiasm I know many of you share about this experience into constructive places over the summer, and or just a chance to get some downtime in a summer before what will be a very lively experience. So what we're going to do in the next short while is first give you a walkthrough of your first week of orientation at Osgoode, which will begin August 28th this year, which is, I believe, a Thursday, as the first day of law school, into then a whirlwind of activities, both social, institutional, intellectual, community, and then give you a bit of a snapshot of the first year program. Again, some of you will have been exposed to this at a welcome day or through lots of the information on the website, but we're going to try to encapsulate it into some useful summary and then respond again to where you've got questions after each of these sessions. As Alyssa said, from that we're going to move straight into what we know is top of mind for many students, and that is paying for law school. And for many of you, the first time you've had to budget in the kind of way you will, whether through credit lines or different sorts of loans or financing arrangements. This is something we know is a premium for the successful students to get off on the right foot. And of course, if you don't pay attention to it, it can come back to haunt you. So we really want to make sure to give you as much information and as helpful information as early as possible. And we'll have questions, of course, after that. Then we're going to move back to Trevor Farrow, who's going to talk more about the clinical experiential program. And we know many of you chose Osgoode because of our leadership in experiential education and law. We have an enormous amount of pride in our intensive programs, clinics, simulations in class, the full range of experiential options. And you'll hear tonight from some of the students who participated, in addition to the faculty member in charge. And then after some questions, we're going to finish off with a discussion of student life. This will weigh more towards the students than the faculty, but is a really important part of the Osgoode experience. And we really do see this different, I think, than certainly any academic program I ever participated in, more as a community than as a place to take classes or a place to get a great education. And that is expressed in lots of different ways, from caring and being attentive to mental health, to wanting to build lifelong friendships together and kindred spirits who share the same passions for an area of practice or community engagement, and really to be outward looking in how we view community as well as building one within. So more on that shortly, but without any further preliminaries, let me ask Kate Sutherland to come back into the focus of the picture to talk a little bit about your first week at Osgoode.
We're looking forward to welcoming you on the first day, which is Thursday, August 28th. What used to be orientation week has stretched out a little into what really now is orientation 10 days. So we begin on that Thursday. There's an awful lot on offer here at Osgoode, and we want to make sure and sort of expose you to everything. It can be quite overwhelming, but it's just a sort of initial meeting of all of the various people and initial exposure to the various organizations and so on, that you can then get to know better through the rest of the time. So what happens right that first day? There will be a welcome assembly that first morning, at which you will meet in person the dean, the associate dean, and various other people that will come to be important to you over the course of your time here, the head librarian, somebody from the IT department, our success and wellness counselor, all manner of people. There will also be that day a Meet the Faculty barbecue at which you will get the first chance to meet your professors that will be guiding you through your first year. There will be that first afternoon a first lecture from a renowned international human rights lawyer, the beginning of your academic journey here. You'll also be getting tours from orientation leaders, meeting upper year students who are going to help you to find your way around and to adjust to your time here. Classes will start on the September 2nd, Tuesday, September 2nd. You'll begin with your legal process classes and ethical lawyering in a global community. Also that week, you'll get more exposure to financial services, to various different departments at Osgoode that may be of assistance to you. You'll also get to learn about volunteer opportunities that come up very early on here, to learn about student clubs, and all through this time as well there will be a bit of a social whirl activities that the Student Orientation Committee has planned for you, at which you'll get a chance to get to know each other and to get to know upper year students and start to develop those relationships which will become so important to you over your 3 years here. So I guess I'll just hand it on.
So I think Kate, one aspect I wanted to mention, building on what you said, is the division of the class into sections, which
Right.
Is a big big challenge at a big school, is how to build in that sense of having not only the large communities we were talking about, but a learning community. And the learning community in first year is very much shaped around your section, and you'll move together through the various courses we'll hear about in a moment. But the orientation week is also a chance to get to know your section, and there's a sense, I think, of belonging from day one that you'll feel. And let me just add, as I hand it back to Kate, to hand it over to Trevor to talk about ethical lawyering, and then to bring in Shanaz as well, that if you have questions, and as you have questions, just to type them into whatever device you're watching this on. And I don't think there's any further instructions you'll need. You should see the place to do that fairly easily. And we welcome questions about anything we're mentioning or anything we're not mentioning, but you wish we would. And we'll have a break after this walk through the first year program to open up the Q&A period. So just to get you primed for that aspect. And again, we'll have them posted here and be able to read them out. We won't read who they're from unless you want attribution, but we welcome as many comments and questions as you have. So back to you, Kate.
Yeah, I've just given you a bit of an overview, and I am going to turn it over now to Professor Farrow to tell you a little bit more about where you'll begin with your classes with ethical lawyering in a global community, and then to hear a little bit more about the student activities that are planned for Orientation Week.
Great, thanks very much. Kate mentioned the course Ethical Lawyering in a Global Community. That along with legal process will be your first introduction to law school courses, and those will come up right in your first week of law school. So starting on that first Tuesday, we will join you for your ethical lawyering course, and the dean also will be teaching that as well. And in a nutshell, we'll spend more time with you in the fall to bring you up to speed on what that course is all about. But a couple of thoughts just to give you a heads up. It's an exciting program in the sense that, unlike some of the other courses that run week in and week out throughout the term, ethical lawyering is a course that is run in 2 blocks. We will meet with you for the first week for 4 days. And then we will put a pause on that course, and then we will come back to you for 2 weeks in January. So it's a course that's taught in 2 blocks. And the reason we do that, in a nutshell, is that historically there have been at least some critiques of law school, saying that law school would bring a plurality of people in and then ask everyone to think the same. We take a different view at Osgoode. We hope to bring a plurality of people to Osgoode and then welcome a plurality of voices on who you are and who you want to be as a legal professional, or in whatever capacity you want to leave this place. And part of that first week is to welcome those voices, to look at what it means to be a professional and some of the different ways that you might think about that. It's really about asking questions as opposed to providing answers, but it's a fun, interesting, and we hope engaged way of introducing you to both the law school and also early steps on that professional trajectory that people will be thinking about. And then, as I say, we'll pause that course. We'll allow you to get some other courses under your belt, and then we'll come back with a longer period of time in January to develop some of those ideas. So that's the idea behind ethical lawyering, and as I say, we'll introduce more of that when you get here. The other course you will have a little bit of an introduction to in the first week is legal process, and that's a course that is a full-year program that will introduce you to a number of aspects of the legal process, writing, lawyering process, arguing cases. So some of that will be introduced in the first week as well.
No, that's terrific. And the other aspect I wanted to make sure we touch on, along with those first courses and the first experience, and suddenly, in the whirlwind of orientation, having to start taking notes, getting your head around some reading, some new material, is that we don't expect anyone to have a foundation in these areas, even though things have changed from when I went to law school here, and the view was you come as a blank slate, and so everyone's starting from scratch. I think the view, certainly that I embrace now, is you're coming not from scratch, but from a wealth of really important experiences, academic, intellectual, life experiences, and we really want to find those connections between who you are and what you've done and this journey. And that's part of the transition to law school, where we know it's about a lot of the ideas you're getting exposed to, but also about the people you're meeting. For many of you, it'll be the first time at this university or in this city, or living in whether it's residence or on your own, and managing the financial affairs we'll get to down the road tonight. So Shanaz, I wanted to turn it over to you just to say a word, since it's fresher in your memory than the aged colleagues who are going into third year. What was on your mind around that transition? What did you wish you kind of knew that you didn't? What were the surprises or unexpected elements in that transition, which might twig some thinking on the people watching tonight?
I think the biggest surprise for me was how nurturing this community actually is. We have this perception of law school being this dog-eat-dog, very competitive world, and I was pleasantly surprised at how many people were making themselves available to help you through and navigate through first year. One of those people were Clinton, so I am eternally grateful, and I plan to pay that forward this year. Osgoode has great resources to tap into, and I think orientation week, these resources present themselves to you, and I think the sooner you break out of your shell in orientation week, the more you feel at home, the more you feel ready to capitalize on these opportunities. So I would say fully immerse yourself in orientation week, befriend your classmates, because they're going to be a great resource to help you navigate through this time as well.
All right, I think my law school experience was much more dog chasing its tail, but I like the metaphor. Clinton, having invoked your mentorship and nurturing support, one of the big challenges that in your lofty status now going into third year you'll have had to deal with is workload. Was it a shock coming into law school, and was it something that you had already sort of some mechanisms to cope with? Did you pick them up? Where will most students look to for support in that way? And again, I don't want anyone to worry that somehow they're not ready for this. You're coming here in a very competitive environment precisely because you've been successful in what you've done. Every reason to be super confident that's going to continue. But we want to make sure all the supports and all the strategies are really transparent for the ways to succeed. So is there anything that you would pass on around that transition from a workload standpoint?
Yeah, definitely. Law school first year was one of the most challenging experiences of my life. I'm not even exaggerating.
In a good way.
In a good way. And also one of the, definitely most challenging, but also one of the most rewarding experiences. I need to be very clear in that. And it was one of the most rewarding experiences. But how you take on that challenge is very important. I think what I had to do was remind myself, much as I like what you were saying, yes, it's a very competitive environment, but the experiences that I brought had much value, and I needed to build my confidence. I think that's a lot of the issues that we have in first year. It's the confidence, because it's so foreign, you just don't get it. And it was a lot of inner working for me in terms of building my confidence and reaching out to upper year mentors. I think Shanaz basically mentioned that, but in your O week, you will have O week leaders. It's going to be a great opportunity to build organic relationships, and I think those are the resources that turned out to be some of the most useful for me, because you will have some things like the Dean's Fellows, but those are very those are things set up by the school. I think some of the organic relationships were the most rewarding in terms of getting tips from people who really wanted you to succeed and were invested in you. So build those relationships in the O week is definitely one of my tips, off of what Shanaz had mentioned.
Great. And Jennifer, anything you want to add on that front?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, Clinton's right, it is very challenging, but at the same time, I really enjoyed first year. I really enjoyed second year. You'll find, I think, that you get very accustomed to law school life very quickly. It feels very foreign at first, and especially I moved here to Toronto from Vancouver the day before law school began. So it was a huge adjustment, but you'll find you adjust fairly quickly. And the mentorship is key. Definitely reach out and try and build relationships with upper year students, whether it's through organizations or your O week leader, because getting that advice and having that shoulder to lean on is really important.
So just on the transition, as we're getting ready to move to some questions, so again, a reminder to send in the questions on this transition and the orientation, adjustment to law school, the first year program, this whole area as you have them. But Kate, I wanted to ask you, as Associate Dean of First Year, you're also in a unique position to talk with students who, after they've settled in, continue to find the challenge, continue to find law school to have surprises or unexpected elements that they adapt to once they're here. So if you could kind of reach back in time and had the chance to tell them the summer before they arrived more of what they might be being attentive to in their own work habits or preparations, so as to minimize the challenge of that transition, what sorts of things might you tell them?
Well, in terms of preparing in advance, one of the questions that we often get is, what should I read to prepare myself before I come to law school? People want to, they know that there's going to be a large workload. They want to get started. So it's important, I think, first to say that we don't encourage you to try and read ahead in terms of assigned readings.
We do encourage you to read.
We do encourage you to read, but we don't even tell you what your books are going to be until you get here, because we don't want you to be trying to read in advance, because you really need to be doing those kinds of assignments with the guidance of your professors. So don't try and do that kind of advanced preparation.
And then, Kate, one other factor that often comes up, certainly when I'm talking to prospective students who, welcome days or they've just accepted the offer, one of the parts of that law school folklore is the, worry about 100% exams, first year exams, especially in a semester system where those exams will, in some cases, for some of your courses, happen in December. Is that something that students should be thinking of different strategies or new strategies to deal with? Is it something they should be relying on what's worked in the past and thinking through, again, that many students will be coming back to law school after stints in careers or having done science or other backgrounds that may not have had this style of exam? Is there anything that can address that kind of concern?
I think in terms of what you're going to be asked to do, in terms of even just reading, learning to read cases, all of those things, right on up through to the exams and the kind of questions that we get, a lot of that is new for pretty much everyone. Students come in with very different backgrounds. They study different things before they come. They have different skill sets. They have different work experience. Yet still, for almost everybody, there's a lot that's new once you get here. So there's two things that I would say about that. The first thing is, even though there's a lot about it that's new, you come with this wealth of knowledge and experience. You should be able to draw confidence from your previous accomplishments. Something in what you've done before, a lot of those skills are going to transfer over. So figure out what you're good at and from what you've done before and how you can bring those into the sort of new things that you're being asked to do. But then you also do have to take some time to learn this new language that is law and how to manipulate it, how to put forward arguments, how to be persuasive, all of those sorts of things. This you're going to learn in your classes. You have excellent professors, but it's still a hard transition to make. Different people make it at different rates. So do take advantage of all of the things that are available to you to help you figure that out. Mention was made of Dean's Fellows. Nearly all of your classes will have a Dean's Fellow attached, which essentially is a peer mentor, an upper year student who's taken that same class from that same professor, knows what the exam looks like, tried some strategies, figured out what worked for them, will be able to offer some options to you. Also, there's an academic success program that my office runs. There will be sessions that you can attend about note-taking strategies, about preparing summaries, about studying for midterms, and so on. And also, you can meet with me. I'm happy to meet one-on-one with anyone who needs some assistance in making that transition to the new kinds of demands that law school makes on you.
Excellent. Well, I think what we'll do is move to a couple of questions at this point, and then when we're done covering off some of the elements of that first week and first year at Osgoode and the transition issues, we'll move into the discussion of how to make sure you remain as financially healthy as you are intellectually enriched. So one question we have from a viewer in Toronto is this: do we need a laptop or a tablet? Is there a recommendation of Windows or Apple products? Does it matter? Thanks. Well, thank you. That is, you know, a opportunity to say something about the staff and administrative resources at the law school, which we haven't really touched on as much as we have the program. And we have both a help desk in the main floor of the law school that will address a range of tech questions and needs, and of course lots of specific expertise when it comes to accessing Moodle, which is the course website program that many of our classes use, and other ways of integrating technology in the classroom. But in terms of the equipment and whether it needs to be a laptop or a tablet, Windows or Apple, you know, our role is to try to accommodate what we know you're bringing. Right? We don't give you each a computer yet as part of the full service package. So I know our IT group has the capacity to provide some assistance with a range of the you know, the devices you will bring. I think it's fair to say that very few students will not come with either a laptop, an ultrabook, tablet, some ability, and by tablet especially the ones with keyboards that allow you to take notes and store documents, whether kind of in a cloud-based program or an external drive. You know, I'm not the tech guru at Osgoode by any stretch, but I think it's fair to say we are integrating those technological components into the fabric of the law school. And in fact, on the website, you'll find a document outlining the digital initiative that maps a bit of the future of what a digital law school will look like, including more student services online and more classroom supports online. But Alyssa, did you want to say anything, or Trevor or Kate, about the specific question on which devices are important? Alyssa will say whichever ones you can get at a discount, but that's not the only.
Used by used equipment.
And I can confirm that looking at the first year class, when from my perspective from the front of the room, as the dean said, many people will have some kind of device, and as to the product placement, it's all over the map. Maybe some of the students though have a particular preference or an experience one way or the other.
I think, sorry, first of all, it doesn't matter which device you use, but a lot of us, it seems the culture dictates that you use Macs. But outside of that, I have friends who use tablets, and as Dean Sossin was mentioning, they use keyboards with those tablets. The problem then, though, will be the exam time. There's a software that you need for your computer that is not yet compatible with a tablet, and you would have to use, you'd have to write your exam in a lab or provide a laptop. So that's the only thing to consider when it comes to which device you'll want to use.
Anything else from the consumers who are living through this?
Well, I always used my Mac in class, but I noticed more in second year, I guess a lot of students start handwriting because they find computers to be a little distracting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Shanaz, anything
I would
else?
say, just coming out of first year, a lot of students, most of us actually had our laptops out, so handwriting was not common because we were still trying to navigate our way around, and just the amount of information that comes your way, we did find laptops beneficial, but again, no preference as to which brand.
No, and in fact, occurs to me we should aim for product placement support, which can fund a new bursary. So that will be on our to-do list for the next webcast. We have another question which deals with an important aspect of law school that, again, is subject to a lot of expectations around what's different about the pedagogy or the way of teaching in law school. And this is this question asks, how important is active participation in class discussions, especially in the way that grades or marks are evaluated? And, you know, it's a feature of law school teaching that it is best when it's interactive, and, you know, this can play out differently in an experiential course to a lecture course, small seminars versus large enrollment classes. But I'd say, you know, you should come not only prepared to actively engage, but to see that as a way of adding real value to your own experience. And related to the last question, engaging now may be putting your hand up and asking a question or responding to one in class. It may be going on the Moodle site to join a discussion group, post a blog. It may be having you know, email exchanges with a faculty member about an upcoming paper, or it may be joining a study group and taking over part of the library and expressing ideas in non-linear ways on a whiteboard. I mean, all of this is part of active participation in classes, which again now extend well beyond the walls of a classroom. But specifically on the evaluation piece, let me let Trevor Farrow and Kate Sutherland say a word about to the extent it features in the evaluation, especially of first year classes, because it does vary.
I can speak to that both about generally and also about the courses that I teach. I think generally everyone is recognizing that people learn in different ways, people participate in different ways. So as the Dean said, it's really important that we think that you do engage and you find your way to participate. But that does not typically translate into the more people putting their hands up, the better a grade you get. We just don't evaluate typically on that basis. Different courses will have different ways of evaluating. So to take as a quick example, the ethical lawyering course, we hope you will spend a lot of time talking on your feet in small groups or what have you. But to the extent that you are evaluated on participation, it's in a way usually that doesn't require you to put your hand up and talk out loud. So we will evaluate you usually on some kind of reflective learning point that you might each write on your own or in a small group. So a lot of the participation is done in that kind of way. So I really do see it as a two-part question. Yes on the evaluation, and don't worry too much on the way that we evaluate you. Yes on the participation. Don't stress too much on how it's evaluated, because we're trying to take that part out of the sort of the active deliberation.
And Kate, anything else from your
Yeah,
perspective?
in terms of whether class participation is an official part of your grade, that's not the case for most first-year classes. I think that's more common in classes that involve small groups, in seminar classes, and you might have that in your second term of first year in your perspective option. It's less likely to happen in your large group classes, but it's up to each individual professor. But you'll find out precisely what component, if any, it is in your grade the first day of class when you see your syllabus. It's all laid out for you, so you'll know that and you can act accordingly. But I would just want to add to the message and the encouragement to participate, because it's a good way to learn. It's actually part of what you're learning how to do, to participate, to speak, to argue, to all of those kinds of things. So even if it's not a part of your grade, I would highly encourage you to do it.
And anything in the form of active participation from the three of you, obviously not everyone comes feeling that sense of confidence or having a personality that is well disposed to joining in. Was it a journey for any of you to get to a place where you felt you were really participating as you would want to?
Well, I think I maybe spoke one time in one of my bigger lecture classes.
But it was memorable.
Yes, it was, yeah, because I was asked a question by the prof and I got it wrong. So, but my seminar course, because they're smaller classes, it's usually around 15 to 20 people. And everyone's there. I mean, these seminars, if you're keeping the same format as the year I was in, first year, then it's you choose your seminar. And it's a topic that you assume everyone in that seminar is interested in, so it's much easier to talk in that smaller setting. And that's really where participation is likely going to matter for your grade evaluation.
Yeah, and I think there's something that Jennifer's point reminds me of, which is law school should be ultimately a place that you feel very much at home. But in a weird way, getting to feel at home often can be pushing your own comfort zone. So if you're not someone who feels comfortable speaking, put yourself in the position of, through strategies that you can work on with mentors or others, working on that as a goal to get over that hump personally. If you're someone who never saw yourself litigating, standing up and debating or being in a moot, make sure oral advocacy is a focus. And if you're someone who feels completely comfortable speaking, but a big research paper fills you with dread, take a directed research course. I mean, I think this is your chance to become much more well-rounded and to fill out wherever the gaps might be, and to do it in an environment with lots of support, lots of people going through the same experience. So we've got time just for a couple more questions, and I see the next one is one right down the alley of many of those on the panel. Is the academic work of the JD program different from that of the undergraduate studies? And if so, how is it different, and what are some ways to help with that transition? And you've heard a few alluding references to law school being unlike undergraduate studies or other graduate studies, but in what ways did you find it different, maybe starting with the students? And again, what, beyond the mentorship that you've spoken of generally on the transition, what helped you with that academic component or content, whether library, faculty, dean's fellows, staff supports? Shanaz, we'll start with you this time.
So I did my undergraduate studies in social sciences and humanities, and I found in my undergraduate work, I was always working towards a thesis and then trying to prove that thesis, so it was a very linear way of thinking. I found when I got to law school, it's more of a web in the sense that one issue is connected to another issue, and there's many things you have to consider at once. And I adapted to this by actually speaking to professors and doing a lot of practice exams. Usually before your exams or your midterms, your professor will release past exams, and it's a good way with answer keys. So it's a good way to practice and see how the multiple issues interconnect with one another.
That's great. And Jennifer, Clinton, anything else to add?
Yeah, I would like to add something actually. For me, it's similar to Shanaz in that there's multiple issues to be considered, but what was the major difference between undergraduate and law school was that law school focuses on application a lot. More so in undergrad, I found I was regurgitating from my exams.
In a good sense.
In a good sense. I could memorize and easily get through the exam. Memorization is not what's happening in law school. You need to apply the rules and come up with like a conclusion and have a deep analysis. So for for me, my recommendation definitely, similar to Shanaz, is to take up practice exams. I don't think enough of us do that. Take up practice exams after you've prepared your summary, but take them up in a group. So book a study group in the library, find some people you work well with and that you can be productive with. Take up those practice exams, because what will happen is you might, let's say there's going to be a fact pattern on the exam and you have to issue spot, and maybe there are 20 issues in the fact pattern. And normally, if you did it on your own, you would have picked up 15. This is just me throwing out a random number. But taking them up in a group will allow other people's perspectives to come in, and you can can close that gap by hearing how other people picked up the 5 issues you had missed. So definitely what I recommend is get to application quicker by doing study groups and picking up the practice exams from past years.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with those insights. And having taught undergraduate and law school courses in my academic career, the only thing I wanted to add is that in law school, the part that can be discombobulating for some students is that rarely is the goal to come up with an answer. I mean, you have to give a conclusion. That's part of the process of analyzing a problem and coming to grips with how to solve it. But it really is about problem solving from a pluralist point of view, different perspectives, different voices, different strategies, all of which may be not only right, but excellent, but will be different and often will be in critical competition with one another. They may even be mutually exclusive strategies. And really how you get there, the journey of your thinking, and having to be very transparent about your thinking is kind of the exercise. Whereas in undergraduate, often it's show that you've read the material, show that you've understood the material. Here it's show that you have your own voice in applying that material to a problem that you haven't seen before, often one that could be ripped from the headlines or very real for people living through it, not just an abstraction. And I think that is a compelling part of the academic program, but for me at least, was entirely different. So just in the interest of time, we're going to take one more question before turning over your financial futures to Alyssa. And that last question involves preparation for practice. So question is, aside from taking the mandatory courses in first year, what kinds of programs, workshops, or other resources can we take advantage of to help understand how practicing in a particular field of law operates day to day? Maybe I'll start with you, Trevor, on this. You'll come back, I know, to some of this in the clinical and experiential discussion. But that sense of practice readiness, and especially where students are selecting their own curriculum beyond the first year and graduation requirements, which is to say most of your upper years will be your own designed curriculum. What are some of the resources they can draw on if they know the area of practice or have a curiosity about one or two areas that they might want to respond to in their curriculum choices?
I think it's a great question, and I think, as Lorne was mentioning, it's one that I think continues to stick with all of us as we sort of develop our professional interests and trajectories and what have you. In terms of specifically here at Osgoode, starting in the first year of law school, you're going to have a couple of resources. You're going to have your colleagues, which is not, others have mentioned that. I don't think you should underestimate the learning you can do from each other. You're going to have the faculty, and I like to say, and I like to think, and I think we are open to having all sorts of conversations with students about career interests, what a given practice area might be like, or what have you. And that's our faculty that is not only full-time faculty, but also our broader adjunct faculty, many of whom are practicing as we speak. There are also some specific programs, some of which I'll talk about in a little while, our clinical programs, and they're particularly helpful for this. And then there are things like first-year mooting. We also have, for example, I run a first-year advocacy session. We have one of the firms downtown runs a different first-year advocacy session for those who are interested in litigation kinds of things, courtroom kinds of things. There are programs in mediation, so different kinds of dispute resolution. And then we have a number of research centers around the place that focus on different areas of work: corporate law, intellectual property, dispute resolution. So part of it will be getting here, acclimatizing yourself to the place, and then starting to learn where to look. But I think it's fair to say that we've got a pretty good range of stuff here at different levels of your law school time that hopefully we can help with that question.
No, I think that's very helpful. And again, I'd add also a really great crew of staff, both in career services, student services, that's had lots of experience with people trying to aim for a particular area of practice, sorts of experiences they've had. Associate Dean, first year, does a lot of advising on this kind of area when it's that aspect of getting ready for future plans, when to go on exchange, whether to take on one of the clinics, what kinds of summer experiences might enhance that route. So again, I think the real difference to law school being that you've got those supports and resources, and we're, as notwithstanding being the biggest law school in the country, for most people it feels like a much smaller community than their undergraduate or graduate studies, certainly in the kind of richness of human resources, whether colleagues, staff, faculty, or advisors. So thank you for responding to that question, and again, thanks to the students for generally helping us through that navigating of the first year in the transition. If you still have questions and they haven't been answered, please do send them in, and we'll have a chance at the end for the lightning round potpourri of everything we haven't got to yet. But for now, I know many have been waiting patiently for Alyssa to reveal the secrets of sound financial planning. So over to Alyssa Cooper.
Hi again. I've had the pleasure of meeting a number of you at various admission events. Getting in is the fun part. Paying for it, not as much fun. So hopefully over the next 10 minutes or so, I can ease some of your financial concerns and give you some information on the kinds of supports and resources that you can expect in your 3 years of law school. So I'll start by telling you a bit about the Financial Services Office. So there are 3 of us in the office. In addition to myself, there's Penny Spence, who's the Director of Student Financial Services, and Nadia Narcisi, who is the Student Financial Services Assistant. And we appreciate that law school is an expensive endeavor, and we understand the impact that concerns about your finances can have on your studies and your health and your well-being. And so that's why we're here to help. We have an open door policy, and we encourage you to come by our office, call us, email us whenever you have a concern, and call us right away so that it doesn't get too overwhelming, and we can help you as soon as that concern presents itself. So the Financial Services Office administers a number of sources of funding. We offer bursaries, scholarships, awards, prizes, internship funding, and emergency funding. So again, if you find yourself in an unexpected financial situation that you need some emergency assistance with during the year, you can always come by our office. In addition, we provide assistance with accessing externally funded awards, securing government funding, student lines of credit from financial institutions, and we help with budgeting and individual financial concerns. So let's talk a bit about funding law school. Tuition for next year is $23,600, and it'll be about the same for the next 3 years. So to make it through law school, it's important to budget properly, plan ahead, and make use of all of the available resources. This past year, Osgoode gave out about $3.5 million in financial assistance to students, and we anticipate doing the same, if not more, for next year. So I thought I would highlight sort of the 3 main sources of funding that most students rely on to pay their tuition. So you can start to think about these over the summer and put these in place for the fall. So the first one is provincial government student loans. So in Ontario, that's OSAP, but every province has a program. Well, you have to pay this back once you're done school. The advantages are that while you're in full-time studies, you don't have to pay the interest. So it's interest-free, and a portion of the loan is a grant, so you don't have to pay the whole thing back at the end. So that's good. Currently, the maximum for OSAP is about $14,000 for a single student without dependents and about $20,000 if you do have dependents. The applications for most provincial programs are online now, so I would encourage you to go online and start completing those so you've got that in place when school starts in the fall. For Ontario students, you have a few days left. If you submit your OSAP application by June 30th, then the first half of your tuition will be automatically deferred until you receive your OSAP funding or October 10th, whichever is earliest. Otherwise, the first half of tuition is due on August 10th. An application for government funding is a requirement for an Osgoode bursary. So if you're thinking about applying for an Osgoode bursary, it's important that you make your application. The second main source of funding is a student line of credit. So this is another requirement for the Osgoode bursary process. You're free to apply for a line of credit with whichever financial institution you like. Many institutions offer different banking benefits and programs for students at professional schools. So it's important to do your research and see where you can get the best arrangement for you and your circumstances. For a number of years, Osgoode has had a relationship with RBC where we continue to negotiate for a great student line of credit program for our students. The advantages of the current program are that in most cases, they won't require a co-signer. The current interest rate is prime plus 0.5%. And you don't have to pay back the principal while you're in law school. And in addition, you don't have to pay it back in your articling year, and then they give you one more year after that. So essentially that's 5 years where you don't have to pay back the principal. So that's a bonus. I understand that Scotiabank has a similar, if not the same program. So again, do your research. Those two banks tend to be the ones that have national programs in place for students at professional schools, but if you bank with a particular branch at another bank, they may be able to come up with something that works for you as well. Finally, the third main source of funding that most of our students rely on is the Osgoode bursary. So students can apply for a bursary in each of their 3 years. You apply in September, so the online bursary application will open up when you start on, when you come to register on August 28th. This year, the bursary deadline will be, or the application deadline will be on September 22nd, but don't worry, we will send you lots of emails to make sure that you remember to apply on time. Annually, about 60% of our students apply for a bursary, and almost 90% of students who apply and meet the eligibility requirements receive something. They're distributed in 3 amounts. So a low need bursary is $1,200, a medium need is $5,000, and a high need is $10,000. And we've designed the program to sort of work hand in hand with the student line of credit that most students have. So even if you receive a low need bursary, the idea is that that $1,200 is sufficient to cover the interest payments on your line of credit, so it effectively creates a second interest-free source of funding. The assessment of need is comparative, so we look at all of the applications for all of the students who have applied, and we look at the totality of your circumstances. So we're looking at things like your resources, your expenses, your assets, debt, and your personal and family circumstances. So those are sort of the 3 main sources of funding. Other sources of funding to think about are external funding. So there is free money out there, you just need to find it. We have created an external award database. It's available on our website, and you can log in using your Osgoode email account, username and password. There are tons of awards with different criteria, different deadlines. Some are essay competitions. They're all different, and they have varying deadlines, and we continue to post them throughout the summer as we become aware of them. So I would encourage you to check back regularly and see if there's anything that you feel you qualify for. And if you have questions about completing an application, you can always contact our office, and we're happy to help you with that. Also, once you're here, you'll be automatically considered for upper year awards, scholarships, medals, prizes. Those are primarily based on your performance in law school. Some of them also have a financial need component. We also have a great internship program, so we give out a lot of internship funding. So this is just for students who are undertaking different internship opportunities in the summer that are underpaid or unpaid. We usually fund them at about $10,000 per student for the summer, and we have different ones in different areas. So some are, if you're working in the public interests, we have a health law one, an environmental law one, and we're always adding new ones. So there will be information sessions once you're here to let you know about all of those opportunities. We also have a couple of exit awards. So these are, the idea behind these is to help you. We know that you're graduating with a lot of debt. We don't want your career choice to be influenced by that amount of debt. So we have some bursaries on your way out, or awards on your way out. And finally, we do have some research assistant positions that are posted often in the summer, also positions in the student services office. So it's another source of funding which you may be interested in. So those are the main sources of funding. I'll just briefly touch on budgeting. Very important to think about over the summer, and I would encourage you to think about your full 3 years. Of course, over the 3 years, your situation will change. You might secure some type of employment or receive a bursary, and so you always want to go back to your budget and adjust it as appropriate, but it will give you an idea of what you might expect over the next 3 years and maybe help you feel a little bit more prepared as you enter the program. We do have a sample budget posted on our website, so you can take a look at that. It's for a single student with no dependents, so if you do have dependents, you'll need to adjust it as appropriate, but it's a good starting point. And I'd also really encourage you to take a look at your expenses and cut down where you can. I like to say that it's better to live like a student while you're in law school so that you can live like a lawyer once you're done. So see what you can do with your expenses. And then just some final notes. We do communicate information about deadlines, funding opportunities to your Osgoode email account, so make sure to check that regularly so you don't miss anything. Be sure to review the financial services website. We've got lots of information there. And you know, we post all of our awards, so you can take a look and see what's available. And then finally, please feel free to contact us at any time. You're not alone in your financial concerns. Everybody has them, and we're happy to speak to you, and we look forward to meeting you in the fall.
Excellent. Well, that is a lot to take in. So we've got time for some questions, and as they're coming in or as you're typing them out, let me pose one that I hear a fair bit from students who are the beneficiaries of credit lines in particular, and these are students who've just, or in fact it applies to OSAP or bursaries, but they're students who've never gotten a big lump sum of money before. They might get from a job a monthly amount, it comes in, goes out, and there ideally is a tiny bit left over. Mm-hmm. But this is a situation where a lot comes in, and then you've got to manage it over a fairly long period of time. Does that present any special challenges and other special strategies that you've seen work to, in a sense, have it all not go out disproportionate to the amount of time it's got to last when it's sitting there and the needs are very much present and often hard to avoid?
Well, so OSAP, or your provincial government aid, will be applied directly to your student account. So that will go straight to tuition. With the line of credit, usually most banks will only release a portion. So they might approve you for $90,000, but they'll release $30,000 each year. So you won't have all of it gone by first year, which is a good thing. And again, I say go back to your budget, create, once you start and you have an idea of what your monthly expenses are, pretend that you only have that portion to cover your monthly expenses. And if you have some left over at the end, that's a bonus. But if you can sort of manage it on a month-by-month basis, then hopefully you won't find yourself out of everything too early on.
No, I think this is definitely a new experience for a lot of people in the midst of other new experiences. So I want to come back to our students for some tips in a moment, but I want to go to the first of the questions we have, which is a really important one, and it applies to our own programs and of course to the government programs too, and that's what kind of information do we have to provide when we apply for a bursary. So in thinking through the common missing parts of documentation, what are some things that people should be alive to now so as not to find their application held up down the road when they need it most?
Sure. So we really ask for everything about your financial circumstances. In terms of backup documentation, I mentioned trying to get your line of credit and your government funding in place this summer. That way you've got backup documentation, so you'll get an estimate of what you're likely to receive from the government by the time you start and have to hand in your bursary application. So if you do that over the summer, you'll have that in time, as well as having documentation from the financial institution, which will say how much line of credit you've been approved for. In addition, we ask you questions about any summer income. We ask you questions about how much is in your bank account, if you have any RRSPs. We ask you to fill in your estimated expenses for the 8-month academic term. And you can use, I mean, some of them it's hard to know and it is an estimate, so you can use our budget as a rough guide for that. We also ask about your debt load, and it's educational debt load. So if you have outstanding student loans or other private loans that were used for funding your undergraduate degree or living expenses while in undergrad, that kind of information we'll ask for. And then we also, in addition to the financial information, we have a portion at the end of the bursary application that allows you to give us additional information that you feel we need to know in order to fully understand your personal circumstances or your financial picture. So it may appear one way based on the numbers, but you have a particular family situation or a health concern that creates additional expenses for you that aren't reflected in the first part of your application. So we encourage you to make a case for yourself, and if you are citing something that's unique or that you feel that we should know about, if you have supporting documentation, that's helpful for us as well.
And can you say just on that front, Alyssa, I know for some students it's also quite personal. It's things they wouldn't share even with some of their closest friends. Mm-hmm. So maybe say a word about the confidentiality and the way in which the office operates, sensitive to the kinds of information it's hearing and hanging on to and responding to.
Sure, yeah. So everything that you submit is completely confidential. The only people who will see it are the 3 members that I mentioned who work in the financial services office. Nobody else will see it. No other students will see it, or any other staff in the office. And we keep all that information locked up in accordance with privacy policies, and we don't get rid of documents until we're supposed to, and we don't share them. So it is all confidential, and you don't have to worry about that. And if there is something that you're very uncomfortable about disclosing in the application and you prefer to come and speak to one of us individually, you can absolutely do that. So you don't have to put something in writing if you prefer to just let us know about your situation. We're always happy to meet with you.
Great. Let me go to the next question, which is certainly something no one should feel they can't disclose to anyone, never mind just Alyssa, and that is if you live at home with your parents, a point of pride for many. Are you still eligible for bursary? So you don't have rent, or at least not the usual kind. What's the situation for the many students we have who, for reasons of their own particular preference or circumstances, find themselves in that Groundhog Day-like sense of being home again?
So first of all, that's great. On the budgeting side of things, I say good planning, and you can save some money there. You're absolutely eligible for a bursary. We're looking at your financial needs. So most students who are attending law school have some financial need just because tuition already is so high. So you can absolutely apply. If you're paying rent to your parents, then and you cite that in your bursary application, then we just ask that you provide us with some documentation, maybe a letter from your parents to confirm the amount of rent that you're paying.
All right, let's move on to the next question. This is about some of our named bursaries. Do we apply separately for these named bursaries? And of course, these are listed in the website, and often these are the product of another source of our funding besides the tuition dollars and the government grants, and that's very philanthropically minded, passionate alumni and supporters who create bursaries through their donations. And this is vital support that goes into financial aid, but often these bursaries may come with specific conditions or be targeted to specific students. So how do the application for those named bursaries fit with the general ones we've been speaking about?
So there's one bursary application that you complete and you are considered for all of our named bursaries, so bursaries that, or money that's been donated to us that has specific criteria. There is a page in the bursary application form that has a whole bunch of questions, and you'll probably wonder why we're asking you some very strange questions after, you know, we ask you about your finances and then we say, do you like civil procedure? But that's because there are awards with very specific criteria. Right, exactly.
Then you get to say things like, I live at home with my parents and I really like civil procedure when you're out and about.
Right, we learn a lot about you from your bursary application. But no, so the reason that we ask those questions is because that way we know when we're allocating funds how we can make up the funds that we allocate to you. So you know, you may not meet the criteria of any of those specific awards, which is fine. We have other funds through the law school or from donors who don't have specific criteria. It will determine how much funding you're eligible for, and then we decide how to make up that funding. If you meet the criteria for one of the named bursaries with specific criteria, then we'll make up a portion of your funding from that particular bursary. But you complete one application in the fall, and you'll be eligible for all of the ones that you see on our website.
And I think the other point I wanted to mention before turning to the students for a moment is not only do we have many RA programs and other employment opportunities for students, especially in the summer, but really throughout the academic year, we also have a priority for students in financial need. So some of the funded public interest internships Alyssa mentioned prioritize students who otherwise are a great fit and have need. We've got a special research assistance category for certain kinds of positions that are tied to students in need as well. And of course the exit bursaries are also tied not only to students in need, but interested in pursuing public interest in some aspects. So all these are about fit. Before we go on to the last couple questions, given that you three are all enjoying great summer jobs at or around the law school, anything that you would add on either the tips you've been hearing about or that transition to a different kind of budgeting and financial experience?
So one tip I would go ahead and share is regarding budgeting. And we hear budgeting is important, but how do we go about doing that? So my first year of law school was the first time I lived away from home. So that meant I was paying for rent, I was paying for food, everything on my own. So one month, my first month, I tracked my spending. I kept all my receipts to really find out how much things really do cost in today's world. I tracked outings with friends, my grocery bill, and then I really realized how expensive things are, and that helped me determine what what funds were available to me that I could allocate for things going out with friends or the necessities like food and paying for rent.
I'm not going to ask how the prioritization worked out on that front, but
I'm here, so.
You're here. And Jennifer, Clinton, anything you would add?
I do have something to add about applying for the bursaries. So there is that section on there where you can describe your personal circumstances. And I know at least a couple of other classmates in first year who maybe didn't describe fully their circumstances because they didn't want to seem like they were being overly self-pitying, or they were just kind of embarrassed to share the information. And definitely share what you're comfortable sharing, but just consider that they need to know your circumstances and be honest about it. They need to know it in order to make a full assessment. And
by the way, one of the students was curious about what your summer jobs are because you introduced yourself a while ago. But Shanaz, again, you mentioned you're the Law Summer Coordinator, which is our program of outreach with the neighboring high schools. This is a collaboration between Osgoode and the University of Toronto. And the Summer Coordinator is both planning for all the activities of the coming year and designing some of the materials and events and initiatives. Jennifer, I think you mentioned the Innocence Project is keeping you busy this summer, which is a project to provide legal services to those who believe they've been wrongly convicted, and it's led by our wonderful faculty member, Alan Young. And Clinton, you were mentioning your position in student services. And what was the title that when you can't give huge salaries, you give huge titles that you have this summer?
Student recruitment coordinator.
Doesn't get any better than that.
As well, it's good. I know Jennifer as well. She's working with the journal.
Yes,
this
I'm
summer.
sort of the acting managing editor for the journal right now, just in that transition period between the old managing editor leaving and the new one coming on. So I'm doing 2 jobs this summer.
So it gives you a sense of the diversity. Plus, again, Lisa mentioned a whole range of research assistants working with faculty directly on their research, with our adjuncts on their course materials, and it is a really valuable source of not only summer employment for students, but creates a collegial atmosphere around the law school, that we've got students involved in research, in creating and designing and delivering programs. We've got students doing teaching, for example, a prep course for the LSAT that all of you took. I'm sure it seems like a million years ago, but these are all great opportunities for students to get involved in really valuable work that also can go some ways to redressing the bills. And I should add, strangely, people also create awards for students who do really well. So if you do really well in courses, someone will want to pay you for that. And while you'd have to win the prize in every single class to have it defray tuition, it still can be a welcome boost for those students who find themselves with prizes in their classes. It goes, I think, to that sense of pride and accomplishment, but also the realization that funds are always going to be welcome wherever they can be found. So with that, I think we'll move to the next topic, with thanks again to Alyssa and our students and your questions as well. But again, if you have further financial questions, apart from always being able to reach out to the office, we'll have time at the very end for some questions we didn't get to. But I want to turn, Trevor, to you, having given the promo for coming back on the clinical and experiential programs. I wanted you to say a word or two about them in addition to our public interest requirement. And then maybe if we have time, Jennifer, you can say a word about your experience with the Innocence Project, or we can talk, Clinton, about ILP or one of the other programs you each have experienced. So Trevor.
Great, thank you, Lorne. One of the things we're proud of a bunch of things here at Osgoode, but one of the things that we're quite proud of is our clinical and intensive programs, part of our experiential education group of offerings. What I'll do is spend a couple of minutes talking about that stuff. I'll spend a further couple of minutes talking about a few opportunities in the first year that might be relevant for folks listening. And then we'll go to a couple of examples from people who have just relatively recently gone through some of these programs to give you a bit of a flavor from that perspective. So in a nutshell, because we are starting to get better at law school of thinking about how we do education, how adults learn, we're trying to do more and more experiential based learning here. And that really happens in a couple of different ways. Many of you will have seen on our website, and if you haven't, we encourage you to go to our Experience Osgoode page, where you'll see a vast array of programs and things that some of which you'll be able to learn about there, more of which you'll learn about when you get here. But we've got a very long tradition of clinical and intensive programs, and what that means are places where people can go and both learn and do, and then think about what they're experiencing at the same time. So we have a series of programs, including 2 poverty law clinics, where our law students in different ways in different places will serve clients of different vulnerable communities, different vulnerable circumstances. We have 2 different criminal-focused programs, one of which Jennifer is going to talk about in a minute. We have several different business and related kinds of programs for those who are interested in business and innovation and intellectual property. We have discrimination and anti-discrimination programs. We have mediation programs. There's a range of stuff that we do that I think you'll find really an exciting place to be. And while we don't like to boast too much, it really does put Osgoode at the front of the pack in terms of offering these sorts of exciting in-house programs. Having said that, we're also doing more experiential education in the classroom. So more and more often you'll be encouraged to find ways to do that sort of experiential education in your regular courses. So that might look like getting up and arguing some kind of case. It might being broken out into small law firm type settings where you'll work with each other and then come back and present a problem. All sorts of different kinds of things where we're trying to engage that active, some of the things that Clinton talked about application, learning the rules that we talked about early in terms of that. Why do we participate? Well, we think it's a good way to learn, and it also models how we do law in the real world. So we're trying to do more of that here at Osgoode, and we think that we're succeeding. A couple of specific examples now. And for those of you that are interested, it's hard to do justice to all those programs in a couple minutes. Happy to take questions, and also we do have a bunch of information on the website. Maybe most relevant for tonight is what might come up in the first year. So starting in your first year, one of the things that we do at Osgoode that's unique in the country is the Osgoode Public Interest Requirement, which is a requirement that everyone satisfy 40 hours of unpaid public interest work while they're here in their JD program. You don't have to do that in your first year, but it can start in your first year, and it's a way of developing ties to the community, to other people, to programs, and that is part of our overall offering. We have several first-year moots, and moots are really opportunities to get up on your feet and argue a case, deliberate about a problem. It may be in a traditional courtroom, it may be in an alternative forum, or it may be something totally unrelated in terms of a client counseling kind of format. We have several of those opportunities in first year. We also have a couple of other projects that people can get involved in. So for example, our laws program that Shanaz, you involved in, the law and actions within schools. First years may well be volunteering there and engaging with some of the local schools and mentoring and working through people transitioning into higher education and university settings. And then we also have some summer opportunities. There's international legal partnerships that you may well work into by the end of your first year in terms of getting out in the world and seeing what kinds of things you can do with your legal education into other communities around the world that are looking for that kind of participation. Finally, probably one of our biggest areas where people in the first year can get involved in experiential education is at one of our poverty law clinics, CLASP, and that is a place where many first-year students will volunteer in assisting with client intake and really starting to get your feet wet in a law environment where you are not just learning in the classroom, but you're applying some of your skills and experiencing what folks in the real world are starting to deal with. So a range of things in your first year that you will start to see, and as you develop your program throughout the curriculum, just more and more presents itself. Maybe now a good opportunity to turn to Jennifer to talk about one of those particular programs, the Innocence Project, and you can say a few words about what it's like.
So there's a lot to say about the Innocence Project, but in the interest of time, I'll keep it just to the basics. So it's a clinical program here at Osgoode. So it runs for the full year, which you'd be doing in your second year. I don't believe first years can get into that program. It's something you would apply for when you're applying for your clinical and intensive programs, which I believe happens in the second semester, beginning of second semester. It's mainly focused towards those interested in criminal law, but that said, there are people that are of the corporate law mind or business law that are involved in the clinic. It's under the direction of the project director, Professor Alan Young. So I've really enjoyed working with the Innocence Project. Last year I was a student member, which means I was doing the project for academic credit throughout the year, as well as taking my other courses. And I'm just working as the executive assistant for the summer. It is yeah, again, it's mostly geared towards criminal law, but you get a lot of involvement with cases, which is great. You get kind of that more practical experience, as well as the more one-on-one direction of Professor Young, which is also great. And it's something that I would seriously consider if you're interested in criminal law to take the Innocence Project. If you see me in the hallways next year and you have questions about it, feel free to come and ask me. I'm happy to answer questions. And yeah.
I think it's great also to think through whichever area you're interested in, not just having one place to go, but many. So we have a criminal law intensive, for example, that involves a lot of work with and shadowing of lawyers, whether prosecutors, defense, getting to meet some of the judges. The Innocence Project is, again, very much focused on a particular caseload where, of course, this is not just at Osgoode, but a network of innocence projects in North America and beyond that have produced some remarkable stories of wrongfully convicted people being not only released, but having inquiries and an exposure of our criminal justice system under the scrutiny that often, when it fails, it needs, and students have played pivotal roles in that. So I think it is great to hear the enthusiasm for it. But I want to make sure we have time for a couple of the questions that are coming on the clinical and experiential. So let's weave in the rest of the discussion with those questions. The first of which comes from Hamilton. And the question is, how competitive is it to get into the clinical programs, and are there enough spots for everyone who wants one? And just to clarify, there is a practicum requirement, Trevor, maybe you can say a word about, which is a unique feature at Osgoode within the country of having every student receive this exposure to experiential education at one point in their upper year legal studies, and that's meant we've had to provide a wide range of choices. So there is, first of all, more than enough spots for all those students, but that doesn't mean every student gets the particular program she or he wants. Some have, excuse me, application processes that involve personal statements and interviews. Others, it's simply by lottery or first come, first serve. And Trevor, maybe you want to say a word about how people get into the various slots they might be interested in.
Sure, and just following up on Lauren's point, everyone will be doing this, whether because we think it is so important. So everyone does some kind of practical program. You'll do a lot of it throughout all sorts of classes, but you will be required to take at least one course or program that satisfies a practicum requirement. Most of our clinical and intensive programs automatically satisfy the practicum requirement. If for some reason you're not interested in those programs, there are other more course-based or classroom-based practicum opportunities that you can choose from. In terms of the specific question, very quickly, there's an application process. It is, as Jennifer said, in the new year. You will be eligible to apply starting in January of your first year to take one of these more bigger clinical or intensive programs in either your second or third year. It's fair to say that if you want to do one of those programs, I think there are not examples that I'm aware of where students have just not been able to take a clinical or intensive program. You typically do get to. Whether you get to in your first choice, in your first time you apply, is a different story. Sometimes you will get that choice. Others you may have to wait till the next round, or you may have to take your second or third choice of a program. Some programs tend to have higher application numbers from some years. Other times their numbers are lower. It really ranges on some of the flow of people's interests. But by and large, to the extent that you're interested, you're going to get a spot.
And of course, we're continuing to add more programs each year. I mean, the one thing that has been really exciting with this move is the launching of new intensive and clinical programs, including one in disability rights law, which just opened its doors in collaboration with the Arch Clinic. We've got a test case clinic coming, and a couple of others that are very exciting in the planning stages. So while you're here, you'll also hear about those new programs. Any Other thoughts, by the way, from Clinton or Shanaz on the clinical experiential fronts you want to add?
Only thing I would like to add is the fact that first-year students have an opportunity to participate in the International Legal Partnership in the summer right after finishing 1L. So you can knock out your practicum requirements by participating in ILP, and the selection process is much of the same with the other clinics in that it's in January. However, ILP is very unique, and I encourage you guys to look into it because it is a student-run organization and gives you wonderful opportunities to flex some legal skills, learn more, and focus on the 3 big C's like your cross-cultural communication, confidentiality, and civility in a new environment, like being abroad and being uncomfortable. So definitely recommend ILP.
And while we don't encourage you to be uncomfortable, if it's in the service of personal growth and providing great services to worthy organizations, we're all for it. What are some of the countries where ILP has fellowships going on this summer?
So this summer we've sent students to Rwanda, Uganda, Gambia, Cambodia, Trinidad. Basically, we've sent them to 7 countries. I can't remember the last one, but just the fact is, even next year we might add more countries. There'll be more exciting opportunities for students to get hands-on learning opportunity in their first summer, and being able to leverage those in the academic year that follows, and even interviews for jobs.
Great. Well, the other part of experiential education, which is not Osgoode specific, but a really important part of the legal education system that we have in Ontario and in Canada generally, is the articling process. And the next question asks specifically about this. And the question is there an articling crisis? Will I get an articling job after I graduate from Osgoode? And the answer for almost all Osgoode students who seek articles is yes. We have an extraordinarily high placement rate. And again, not everyone who comes to law school wants to article, which is what happens after you graduate for 10 months, leading then into the licensing process and taking of the final steps towards becoming a lawyer. But for those who do want that opportunity, we continue to work very hard through our career development office to ensure students are both well positioned to decide and make choices that are right for them in the areas of law they want to practice, and then making sure those opportunities are available. And this includes not just articling, but the summer job experience outside of the ones we mentioned, which were ones where the law school is the employer or providing the funding to, of course, the market in public and private sectors for summer students, which really takes off in the second summer, although there's a handful of jobs after the first year. But after third year, when articling starts, this for many people is a really important kind of experiential education, and it's where they're finding ideally a place that they'll spend a good part of their career, either in area of practice or actual employer. But the crisis is not made up. There are far more people seeking articles than there are spots, and this is in large part due to offshore schools, that is schools in Australia and the UK and elsewhere, which are graduating both Canadians and non-Canadians who are coming back into this marketplace. And so as a result, the Law Society has piloted a different pathway just starting at the end of this summer, so in early fall 2014, called the Law Practice Program, or the LPP, and this is offered in French at the University of Ottawa, in English through Ryerson University, in collaboration with the Law Society of Upper Canada that regulates that aspect of the journey to becoming a lawyer after you graduate. And this means for those who either don't want to pursue an articling position or aren't able to obtain one, that they'll have a pathway to practice. It consists of 4 months of largely online with some in-person training that's around practice readiness, and then a 4-month internship which may be paid, ideally will be paid, but there may not be a guarantee in that regard and that's another option for those who wish to practice and aren't able to article. But again, for now at Osgoode, we still enjoy a very high placement rate, and we're never complacent about it because we know there are more people looking for spots than there are spots. So our curriculum, which you've been hearing a lot about, is one part of the reason why I think our students do well, our reputation and the hard work of staff in these areas, but most of all, the kinds of students who come here and the skills they bring and acquire once they're here are the biggest reason why I think we continue to do well. All that said, there is no guarantee, and we certainly every year have a small handful of students who aren't able to find articles, and again, now that will mean a journey through the LPP if they want to practice. So with that, I think we're at the time where we want to move to the last area for discussion, and then again, we'll take questions on it and anything else that's come up that we haven't been able to address. But it's certainly true to the cliche, last but not least, because it engages student life, all those aspects that don't fall into the curriculum and the program per se, but we know are huge aspects of the student experience and the quality of that experience. And in fact, for many, long after memories of which question they did or didn't answer right in first year classes subsides, the kinds of friendships, experiences in living on campus, student government, clubs, performing for the first time in the drag show or the mock trial. I mean, all this is very much part of the Osgoode experience. So let me turn again to our students. And Shanaz, let me start with you, particularly around living on campus, which is an extra level of intensity in the Osgoode experience, especially come the dead of February when the beauty of the rolling hills of Downsview gives way to a bit of a breeze and a slight nip in the air.
So I lived at the Osgoode Chambers during my first year, and the biggest advantage of living in the residence here is the convenience factor. So I would lock my apartment door and then be seated in my class all within 5 minutes, which is amazing.
And that's getting lost at least once along the way, because they're not that far.
And the Osgoode Chambers is housed within the Passy Gardens residence, and it's nice to know that your neighbors there are your fellow classmates. They are fellow law students, and the rest of the complex is comprised of graduate students. So you are living amongst a mature crowd, and they do respect your need for personal space and quieter noise level. We do have residence fellows as well, and these fellows go out of their way to plan events, coordinate potlucks, organize grocery runs. So you are living within a micro community once you do live at the Osgoode Chambers, if you choose so. The Owl's Nest is also a great place to get together communally to hang out with your friends. There's a great big screen TV in there so you can unwind. And the benefit of the Osgoode Chambers is that they are all individual accommodations, whether it's a bachelor apartment or a one-bedroom apartment. So it does give you the option to retreat back into your own space when you want to unwind. As I said, the biggest advantage was that living on campus, it frees up your time. So there's so many things going in and around Osgoode that it really allows you the opportunity to pop in and pop out without worrying about a commute either way. And living here at Osgoode, you are also a part of the greater York community, and you do get to enjoy those facilities as well, including their food options, the recreational and fitness facilities. So coming to the Osgoode Chambers, you are cementing yourself in the wider York community as well.
And Jennifer, maybe you can say a word, for many students, I think, like you, will be coming from other cities and will be just as pleased as you were to put the ocean and mountains behind you so that, again, Downsview in all its glory was what you woke up to every morning. You also lived on campus, I think, for at least part of your time here. So in terms of getting used to the new city and trying to build in ways to take advantage of that with all the other intensity we've been talking about around first year. Anything you want to share about how you managed that?
Well, I lived Midtown my first year, and I did find the commute was a little bit difficult. I mean, the most important thing, I guess, is just if you can read on the bus or the train, it's a good idea, because I had about a 3-hour commute in total every day. I ended up moving on campus for second year just because I didn't enjoy that commute. The most important thing, I guess, is building your network of friends if you're new to the city here. And it's actually, I think, pretty easy to do, especially if you get involved in clubs, which we're going to talk about shortly. Just because you don't feel so isolated then if you do have people to go out with. And especially first year, I actually spent a lot of my out-of-class hours on campus because a lot of my friends lived here. So, I mean, the most important thing is meet people, and if you're not from here, especially.
That's great. And maybe now turning to some of the discussion of clubs. Clinton, you already mentioned the ILP as a student-run club in addition to a place where you can get fellowships and having an intellectual component. What's been your experience with that more club aspect of having a group of kindred spirits who share an interest in your case, international human rights?
I found my experience through clubs, ILP, BALSA, student government, whichever group of students I was with, I found the experience to be really beneficial in that, as you mentioned, the kindred spirit, it's easy to build that bond. These are people I'm going to be friends with for life. It's really, it feels, it's very, sorry, let me rewind. Law schools can sometimes be, as I mentioned, a challenging space, but when you find that network or a group of friends or people who have that shared experience with you or a common understanding, it's good to have that outlet. So sometimes when, let's say, you have a hectic schedule, but you might take an afternoon to plan something with a student group, maybe an ILP photo exhibit. Being there in that space sometimes is an outlet. It gives you time to take a break away from the crazy hectic period that is law school sometimes. So I think the best thing about the student groups or student government or being even if it's not in an official capacity like that, but your group of friends is having an outlet that gives you time just to step away from law school.
And I think, what I would add to that, Clinton, is it's not just coming into this kind of ready-made environment with these great clubs and initiatives. As a dean for the last 4 years, I'm amazed at the things that just were started in real time by students who either responded to things happening in the world, responded to things they saw around them, created initiatives or clubs where they didn't exist before, grew into positive responses from things that they saw around them that were troubling or in some cases tragedies. And just before going to our last set of questions, and we'll try to get to all of them if we can, I want to invite Jennifer and Clinton to say a word or two about some other initiatives just this past year where students came together in great leadership to create something new that will have a lasting impact at Osgoode. So let me start, Jennifer, with you.
So a few of our classmates, Clinton and I, they're going to third year, and they started last year. I think it was already in the works, but they kind of built it up, was the Osgoode Peer Support Center. And so that's a forum for students to go, and it can be completely private and confidential. You go and you talk to somebody. They can set you up with kind of a mentor. Now, I believe Osgoode also has a mentorship program, but this is a little bit different just in the way that you can be guaranteed, like all peer supporters sign a confidentiality agreement going in, so you can be assured that everything you share with them will be completely confidential. And it's just a great resource, and I know a lot of people who run it, and they're just people who really do care about helping students adjust to law school and deal with all the pressure.
That's great. And Clinton?
Yeah, two things I saw this year that are true testament to the power of student groups or students coming together with a common vision. First, I'll mention the South Asian Law Students Association, aka SALSA, and SALSA created the first student bursary. In that, the bursaries normally are funded by either by Osgoode somehow or externally, but this is now funded through SALSA. So I think having a vision like that, it really creates for unique opportunities to facilitate leadership, but also help out your peers and impact the Osgoode community. And looking outside of the Osgoode community, the Black Law Students Association, this year we created 4 bursaries for we created a bursary program that awarded 4 students an tuition to an LSAT prep course, and that was a renowned course in Toronto. And I think that this falls in line with Osgoode's mission for access to justice and breaking down the walls per se around law. And I think Salsa and Balsa really show just again the true spirit of coming together as leaders, as forward-thinking law students, and making positive impacts in the community, in Osgoode rather, and outside.
I think that's terrific to mention, Clinton. It also speaks to another value that hopefully you've seen woven through our discussion, which is one of inclusion, one of the sense that there isn't a norm of an Osgoode student to which some others simply don't fit or will feel different or feel like they don't belong, or this isn't their law school, this isn't their community. And I think we feel very passionately about the idea that every student should have ownership of not only their own law school experience, but of the collective, of the community itself. And it speaks, I think, to also something that students take the leadership in, not just in supporting each other, but in ensuring classrooms are safe spaces, ensuring that that sense of collegiality, sense of support, and respect for difference and respect for what people bring to law school and the different kinds of lives they've had is something we never take for granted. So moving now to the last set of questions, the first one deals with exactly this kind of topic, and it's from a student in Toronto who asks or says hi, which is great, hi. I'm coming back to school after working for a number of years. What advice would you give me to help me transition back into academic life? And this is one of the areas where there again is a new spirit of pluralism. There used to be a mature student group and a bunch of 23-year-olds coming straight out of undergrad. And I think now what I'm struck by is the variation on all those themes. A number of students who've taken a year or two off or done a graduate degree or started a career, others coming back mid-career, others only getting started in their undergrad studies after working for a long period of time. So there really isn't a sense, I think, anymore of feeling out of step with or in any sense different than a norm at law school. That's not to say there aren't different challenges or distinct challenges. And I think coming back as a mature student presents a really important set of additional features to law school life. In many cases, that includes having families or spouses or children or responsibilities that are different. That gives skill sets on time management, on having a comfort in your own skin that the 23-year-olds might not have yet. But the only thing I'd say by way of answering that is, again, finding support in a peer sense. So we have mature students coming together in their own association. There's an alumni group now also of the people who were mature students when they came through, and again, passing along not only the support, but some strategies that have worked for some or the others is really important, and that applies not just to mature students, but I think that category itself doesn't really fit the variation of students we see, and I think there's, again, not shouldn't be any sense beyond maybe getting up to speed on whether Macs are cooler than, than other laptops before you're going to feel very much in step, especially given some of the career environments or family responsibilities give additional insights into legal issues that others might not see. So it's about valuing each person's experience, I think. But anything, Kate, you want to add on that?
There is a Mature Students Association, and the last 2 years I know, and so I'm assuming it will happen again, they've had their own Mature Students Association orientation, which is a couple of days before the beginning of our orientation. So I'm assuming that will happen again, and that information will go out to it. So that's a great place to make connections right away with other students who have had similar experiences to you, and who can anticipate the sorts of questions that you might have and the sort of assistance that you might be looking for. The other thing that I would say is that something that I've noticed about mature students is that often they are the last to come and take up the resources that are available in terms of extra help, peer support, all of those kinds of things. Your mature individuals who are used to being independent and out in the world making your own way, so thinking that you should be able to do it on your own. Of course, it's fine to be independent. It's great. That's one of the good things that you bring to the school and to your studies, but all of those resources are there for everyone. So don't have all of your classmates going and taking advantage of them and then sort of put yourself in a worse position by not also accessing those resources. Come see us, attend, get whatever help is available that you think you might need.
Great. So the next question is about safe space. As an incoming queer student, I'd like to know, what does Osgoode do to create a safe space or a safe space environment for minorities? And again, and first of all, this is probably a good occasion to recognize how amazing the spirit of World Pride is for everyone at York and at Osgoode. We have an Outlaws Association at Osgoode that is going to be carrying the Osgoode banner in the parade coming up to celebrate Pride. We take great pride in not only our LGBTQ community, but also this year in particular in some of the internal reflections we engaged in around what some of you will have been reading about, the application by Trinity Western to establish a law school out west. That's engaged many of these core issues on what it means to be an inclusive environment, and that means inclusive of religious minorities, inclusive of the communities who are feeling very much emotionally engaged with that issue. And Osgoode responded not just with a statement about the values that we felt that were important, but also created an essay prize in the area of religious pluralism, created a bursary program in the area of those active in LGBTQ communities. And I think this is something that also reflects what it means to be in a safe space. It also has to be safe to express values and ideas and to respect the values and ideas of others. And we've really, I think, wrestled well with that constellation of issues this year. But it's absolutely a place, not just the night of the drag show or not just when there's pride or an event going on, but a day-to-day environment where we really want to value what people bring to their identity, how that identity matters to the law school community, and how it engages lots of issues that are important to our research community, to our teaching community. So in all those respects, we work really hard on that front. And where there are issues, we also have a safe counsel program. We have an academic success and wellness office, so that anyone who is feeling excluded, marginalized for any number of reasons will have a place to go to find that support and advocacy, and that's something we take very seriously too. So we heard Jennifer, exaggerate the memories of that first-year commute, which was really only 25 minutes when the streets were clear. But that's not the one you remember, of course, because I live in Midtown, and it's just the pleasures of commuting. I don't want to get lost in the shuffle. But the next question is, I plan to live in downtown Toronto. Will the commute be a disadvantage for me? And you don't indicate whether you get nauseous reading while in motion, so I can't speak to the issue that Jennifer raised. But what do you think? Is there a disadvantage to commuting? My instinct is you're best to live where you're most comfortable, and that outweighs any of the minor inconveniences which you adapt to. If you're rolling out of bed 5 minutes before class, great to be living 5 minutes away from class. If you love that idea of space to get decompressed after and prepared for the day, the commute can be an amazing way to do that. People carpool, some people take public transit, of course, and there's many ways to use that time effectively. But any commuting stories that complement Jennifer's?
I lived on campus, so
I would say,
go ahead.
I would say it's only a disadvantage if you make it a disadvantage. Living on campus doesn't necessarily mean that you are using your time wiser. You could live across the street and then not be working on the task at hand. So if you do know you have a commute, it just means you have to manage your time wiser. But as I said, it's only a disadvantage if you make it one.
Yeah, and I'd say again, don't close yourself off to those serendipity pleasures. There's a friend I still have today who we never took a class together at Osgoode. Never had much in common at Osgoode. We just happened to live in the same neck of the woods around St. Clair and Oakwood, and so between one of us having access to some borrowed car or the other, we came up to school almost every day together, and that's a pretty remarkable bond. So, you know, sometimes in the least expected places you'll find something that will be an ongoing positive story to tell.
Also the subway, sorry, it's going to be extended.
That's right, gives me a chance to pledge once again to this to this class, not like those classes before you. You will take the subway to law school before you're done, and we see it being built every day. The tunnel has been dug. It will be a game changer, of course, in many ways for us. But of course that is something that will, you know, unfold more for the latter years of your journey with Osgoode than the former. So, just in interest of time, we have the chance to squeeze in one last question, and it comes to us about an issue we touched on earlier when there was a slight disagreement among our students as to whether the cool kids are writing by hand or typing in various devices. Question reads, I haven't written by hand in a very long time. Are all exams handwritten? When I wrote the written part of the LSAT, I realized how horrible my penmanship had become. Should I be concerned about that? Signed, cursive anxiety. So here's the short answer. The norm now is to have all exams written, as mentioned, through a software called ExamSoft on either a laptop or a desktop computer. There is, of course, the ability to write by hand if you prefer, and every student has to be prepared to write by hand in the very unlikely event of a failure of that software. But even if it's 99% successful, and we've got the number of students we have, that means a few students every exam season are going to find themselves having to write by hand. So the short answer is that I think, you know, the idea is to find your most comfortable way of writing. There are advantages to both. We certainly grade each in a way that's reflective of the way in which you're expressing it. That is to say, you can use a lot more words when you typewrite if you're fast. Doesn't make the quality of the answers necessarily better, and that shows up time and time again as someone who grades these. But let me give a last word on this question to our students. Is there a kind of retro, back to vinyl handwriting movement afoot, or is it still the exception that proves the rule? Shanaz, what do you think?
For my first year class, it was the exception, but as Dean Sossin said, if you do prefer handwriting, I would do a practice exam and do it within the time restraint that you would have in your actual exam and see if you can get through what you need to cover if you handwrite or if it actually turns out to be better to type. So I would say give both a try.
All right, Jennifer, have you had time to reflect on your initial instincts?
Well, that was just in class. I don't know if people, actually, most of the people I knew who handwrite in class, they only avoid the laptop because they find it a distraction, so they actually do type their exams. And I love typing the exams. I'm the worst handwriter, so it's a real benefit.
Clinton.
I've written an exam and I've handwritten an exam and I have typed one up. My experience in the handwritten exam is because my thought process isn't always linear, it doesn't afford me the opportunity to cut and paste and really, I guess, format my answer in a way that makes it easier for the marker to read. So that would be the advantage for me when I'm thinking about writing an exam. I would rather just type it up because thankfully on ExamSoft, I can just copy and paste and reformat my answer in a way that would, I guess, hopefully have a more compelling response.
No, and I got to say, as someone who grades exams and is of a certain age, it's quite a kind of drag because you develop this amazing capacity to read through even the worst penmanship, and now I've got this like all dressed up and nowhere to go feeling, as so few exams are handwritten. So if you do have the chance to handwrite and your penmanship is terrible, make sure to take my classes. But that brings us regrettably to the end of the fun of the webcast. But of course, what we really hope to have done, apart from sharing some information we think will be useful and helpful, is whet your appetite for lots more to come at the end of the summer. And of course, there are ways to connect with faculty, with the financial aid office, with student services, with other students, all through the summer for particular needs or questions. And I do apologize if there were some questions we ran out of time before we could address. It really is a hugely warm and inviting, vibrant and engaging place, and we really look forward to you contributing to that, to getting to meet you and know you. Until then, until August 28th, we wish you a really relaxing, fun, productive, enjoyable summer. And on behalf of Alyssa and Trevor and Kate and myself and Shanaz and Jennifer and Clinton and our wonderful production team you can't see, but who've been trying to make us laugh and giggle and have heckled us warmly throughout, thanks for putting all this together, and look forward to seeing you soon. And that's it for tonight. Thanks.